Yeah, welcome to my workshop. My name is Derya Oeztuerk-Prehn, and thanks to Maxon for inviting me here to show you guys the, as you can read up there, the new particle system in Cinema 4D 2024.4. And yeah, it was about time, I would say. Just a bit about me. I'm a freelance 3D artist now for over 15 years, and my main tools are Cinema 4D and Houdini, and as render engines I mostly use Redshift and Octane. I'm based in Berlin, and yeah, so Maxon was kind enough to ask me if I would like to do the presets, which can be found in the asset browser for this version, which was just an amazing offer. So of course I said yes, and this will be the biggest part of my presentation, which you can see in the middle. So the group switch, B-tangent noise, etc. Those are the presets I wanted to show you guys and do a walkthrough. And yeah, so bit nervous here, sorry. And first off, here's my reel. Thanks, guys. And these will be the presets I wanted to talk about or go do a walkthrough through them. Yeah, exactly. So those and more of those can be found in the asset browser. So let's go into Cinema and take a look at those. This works, perfect. So first off, where can you find those particle presets? They can be found here in the asset browser. When you go, I mean, you can find them here in the all category, but I think it's a bit easier to go to scenes and then down there to features and then particles. And all of them have a preview attached to them, so as soon as you hover over them, you'll know what's in the preset for you guys. And let's start off with one of the more simple ones. It's called Switch Groups. So let's see, that works, cool. And in this setup, I see, here's the emitter. I'm emitting 6,000 particles. Let's turn off these ones. And they are emitted into the basic group, which is this guy here. And let's just play it to see. Yeah, as you can see, I have my emission shape or emitter shape is a circle, and those particles have a specific lifetime of 120 frames plus minus 60 frames. And so I wanted that those particles are switching from one group to the other, because in the other group there's a gravity modifier attached. So after a specific condition or a specific time, those particles are switching the group. And here's my condition, the condition object for that, to make that happen. So if I turn this one on, This one is set to h. That means the particle h is questioned, and as soon as the particle h is over 10 frames, those particles are basically meeting the condition, and everything which is below the condition object takes place or is activated or is doing its thing. Sorry. So here's one math modifier which just multiplies the color, and then in the viewport we can see that that condition is already kicking in. And then there is another modifier called switch group, and that one, as soon as the condition is met, will put those particles into a new group, and in that group a gravity modifier is activated. So, and I animated the chance parameter. In other applications, this one is sometimes called random. So that means, let me just turn off the animation. So if this one is set to 100%, that means as soon as the particles are over 10 frames old, all of them are meeting the condition, and these modifiers are kicking in. But if you lower this chance parameter, you can see that not all at the same time are acting upon it, but yeah, sorry, just lost my train of thought. So I wanted to have this animation that they're starting off like a couple of particles, and then after a time frame, specific time frame, there more of them are flying upwards. That's why I just animated the chance parameter. So I can do that here again. So let's say after 10, 0, and then after 10, 20 frames, maybe 10% chance. So that means at the beginning nothing's happening, then a couple, and then even more. Maybe I just put it down there. Let's see how that looks. Yeah. Some, or maybe even more, or make less of a chance. Yeah, that looks nice. And of course, here in that group, I just applied a gravity modifier. You can apply any other modifier you like. Let's take, for example, the turbulence modifier, and now they're going upwards in a more turbulent fashion. And of course, it doesn't have to be the H used as a condition. I mean, we can also, I could have also probably used a field condition, and let's just swap it, take these modifiers, put them into the field condition, and let's create a field. Wait a sec. So, yeah. So there it is. And now let's see which way it works. Yeah, that's cool. So let's say I'm just using this field and going through the shape of the emitter, and then the field is basically activating or meeting the condition, and then these two modifiers are taking place. So excuse me. This is the first preset I want to show you guys. Now let's get to another one. Yeah, why not the wind tunnel? Double click, there it is. So here a particle stream, let's look from the right view. A particle stream is following the shape of this car, and they're also traced. That means I'm generating splines with this one. So, and the setup is rather simple, I would say. I'm using two very interesting modifiers. One is surface attract, and the other one is turn. And in order to make the particles move around the object, I need a specific tag, which is called the collider tag. If I'm deactivating this, nothing will happen. And as you can see, I have an object here which is hidden. And let me just turn that one on and the actual car model off. And as you can see, I've used a different object as a collider, which has much less polygons than my car, and makes the calculations much more easier for the computer. So, but that one is hidden, and like I said, I'm using here the collider tag. So this modifier is the one which let me turn off the other one, which is set to follow the shape, but it's not on full strength, because if I would do that, the particles would follow the shape, but it would at the same time go all over the place. That's why I needed this second modifier called turn. Just activating this one. That one just tells the particle where to turn. Now it's set to plus Z. Could have been also plus Y, or or minus Y. And also this one is not set to 100%. That means they're not reacting immediately, but they take their time, as you can see, if you lower that rate. So I think it was set to 30%. And let's set it back to plus Z. And now both of these modifiers are doing their thing. That means the surface attract first lets the particle attract to the surface, to this one here, and then as soon as they are not, as the particles are more than 40 centimeters away from the surface, the turn modifier kicks in, and so my particles are going their way into the plus Z direction. Just turning this one off, so you can see what would happen without this one. So, and I also have in this preset another modifier, that's this math modifier, which can restrict the movement, because right now they're in 3D space, but maybe you want to have them flat. Let's turn it on and see what it does. So now the particles are just in the X position at 0. Of course, you could move them into one direction or the other direction. But this one is by default turned off. Exactly. So, anything else? And maybe we could also take a look at rendering this one. So all of the presets are, let me see if that works in the viewport, are created with having rendering in mind. That means there's a camera, a simple dome light in the scenes. And one thing which is probably interesting to get those, I didn't use the particles for rendering, but I'm tracing them by putting the basic group, this guy here, into a tracer, and maybe turn off redshift for a sec. And I'm using a redshift object tag which can render splines without putting them into a sweep, for example, and set it to cylinder. And now those traced splines can be rendered, like so. And inside the material, let me see here, in order to get those, think I can get rid of these guys, exactly. In order to create the colors of those splines, going from white to red, I used an attribute which is called curve ID normalized here in my shader graph, and that means basically all of those curves or splines have an ID attached to them, and it's normalized. That means they are going from 0 to 1, which I then can use in a ramp, and then use a colored ramp to colorize them. So we can, let's load in different color scheme. Yeah, exactly. So without this ramp, my curves would probably go from black to white, as you can see here, and the rest of the shader tree is rather simple. It's just an incandescent shader and set to a high intensity, so I get some kind. So I can activate also bloom. Exactly. So they're blooming a bit, and yeah. So that's how the. Oops. Sorry. That's how the splines are rendered. Yeah, let's play them again. So yeah, that's the wind tunnel. Let's go to a different preset. I think this one is fun. So this one uses. Okay. Ah, cool. Works. Awesome. So this one uses pyro inside of Cinema to drive the movement of the particles. Let me turn off the particles for a sec and go in here to the simulation scene and turn on pyro, because right now I made it invisible. Yeah, there it is. So as you can see, this is more like a crude pyro simulation, but it's enough to drive our particles. Of course, we could, lower the voxel size, but I'm not sure if it's really needed. And the nice thing, of course, if you have the voxel size that high, that it's even playing real time in the viewport. So let me turn off the or hide the pyro, not turn off, sorry, and turn on my particles. So here my basic emitter shape is a sphere, and it's shooting, let's see, I think 2 million. Yeah, 2 million particles into the scene. Let's do that without any modifier turned on. Oops, sorry, the group I should turn on, exactly. So yeah, rather boring. But if we're using this pyro advect modifier, we can make use of the velocity velocity field created by pyro to move our particles, and it's like really easy. We can. So you just where is it? Pyro advect. Get this one in here. It's already set to absolute velocity, and one is normally fine as a starting point, and let's just cool, works. Nice. And last but not least, I use the color mapper, which takes the magnitude or the speed of the particles and maps this gradient or these colors. So let's see if that works. Cool. Maybe we don't need an additional speed while we're shooting out the particles. Let's start with 0. Yeah, that looks better. And let's play around with some settings. And maybe make the pyro velocity, dampen that a bit, so the particles don't go so much outside and stopping, or maybe even more. So now they should exactly slow down. That's a nice effect. Cool. One thing I forgot to mention with this setup is how do I emit the pyro, or how is the pyro created. So in order to show that, let's draw the pyro again. I have here my pyro emission object, which has a pyro tag, and I animated the density and the temperature at the beginning of my timeline. So as you can see, at the beginning they have some density and temperature applied to them, and after frame 10 they have 0. So I have this kind of explosion effect. And as you can see, I mean, it's like very rough, but it's enough to create some. Let me turn these guys again to create some nice and interesting particle movement. One thing, I think, not on all of them, but on most of them, here on the simulation scene object, there's a README tag where I try to give the basic gist of the scene. Because I don't have the chance to show all of the presets today, but you can, like I said, so you can go in and read a bit, and that should help you get going with the presets. So that was the pyro advection. The next preset I wanted to show was this one here. Maybe we should close the other ones, so just to not have some trouble here. So this one has also depth of field activated in the viewport. Let me turn off that one and zoom out a bit. So, and let's turn this guy off. So this one is also, I would say, rather basic setup, but it's effective. And if you render those guys, I mean, I would say they look. Oh, let me turn off bucket mode. Needs a couple of seconds. Ah, cool. There it renders. Maybe I should turn off depth of field. Exactly, to have this. It has also some post-effect bloom applied to it, and some gold metal material to give this glittery gold appearance. Let me turn off redshift. So how was this build? Let's start with the basic group. So here I have an emitter. Yeah, let's zoom out a bit. So it's shooting a couple of particles upwards. They are rather fast and are living for 270 frames plus minus 90 frames. And I'm also mapping the age with the data mapper modifier, the age to the radius. Right now it's not that much visible. I'm just overdoing it here so we can see what's happening. So as you can see, after they are born, they get bigger, basically. So this is how I control it. So I'm saying here, take the age percentage between the normalized age, basically between 0 and 10%, and map that to this radius. So they're starting small and then getting bigger, and then they're staying big. So I think it was set to 0.3. And then I'm using a very interesting very interesting object called reproduce. And this one basically replicates, copies, duplicates, or reproduces your particles. And but you should be very careful with this guy, because if you don't have a condition, or if you don't have it under a group, it also reproduces itself. That means your particle count can increase exponentially, and that can lead to freeze up cinema, basically. So here I have it under the basic group. That means only the particles created here in the basic group are reproduced, because the reproduce itself has also a different group which is emitting into. And that means this one isn't reproduced, only the basic one. So those, yeah. So it's not reproducing itself, basically. And inside of the reproduce, you can say how many particles are reproduced, if there's a variance, if you want to distribute the reproduction or have it per particle, once, constant, etc. Let's just play it to see the effect. So as you can see, now those base particles, these ones are reproduced, and I have those reproduced particles, they are living forever. That like this 0 means basically that their life expectation is set to 0, and that means they're just living forever. And the velocity of those, they have like a low velocity, some variance to them, and the direction of those particles are set to random, but at the same time they're inheriting some of the speed and some of the direction from the base particles. So if I would, let's say, turn this to 100%, so they're inheriting now fully the speed and direction. That means those reproduced particles are just sitting on top of the base particles. You can see change if I change here the values. I think it was somewhere around those. And another important thing with those reproduced particles is that they have some base angular velocity to them. That means they're just spinning with this speed here, and the vector or the direction they're spinning is set to random. In order to see that, let's maybe reduce the amount of reproduced particles. Let's see, what do we have here? 200. Let's make maybe just 2. Yeah, cool. And there's this way of the draw mode of those of the particles. You can change them, and I think very useful, of course, are the dots and also the handles. So this shows how those particles are aligned, and basically their XYZ direction. And the thing is, so if I'm render those, I think it will be clearer. Really small. Oops, this one maybe. So this one looks in this direction, and yeah, exactly. So it looks this direction. So yeah, I'm not sure if I explained that very well. Let me just get an object. So yeah, it's basically as if you would have like a pivot on an object, yeah, like so, and these show the XYZ directions and which way your object is aligned, basically. So so where are we? Here. And yeah, or angled. And yeah. So this is something which you can set at birth or also later on with, for example, the spin modifier. But I just used the birth and set like the angular velocity, so they're spinning and turning around and have some variance to them while being reproduced. So maybe let's set this one back to that. I think it was in 200, and maybe turn off the handle view and maybe turn on this guy. So now, and then I used some friction so they're not flying up so high. And after that, also some gravity. That means they're shooting upwards. Maybe also turn on color already. Exactly. So they're shooting upwards, and then gravity kicks in and pulls them back down. And in order to give them some interesting movement, I apply 2 turbulence modifier. One has a bigger scale, the other one a bit smaller. Let's turn those ones on, and that's how this effect came into life. And let me see, just open it again. So we have the camera view and play it exactly, and then maybe turn off redshift, turn off the bucket mode. Yeah. So yeah, and not sure if it's visible if I go frame by frame. Not really. but as you can see in the preview, they're also spinning. Let me see. Yeah. So because while they're spinning, they're catching this top light here, and that plus some post-effect bloom results in this nice glittery appearance of those. And in this case, I didn't use just points or spheres, but custom objects. And these are my 3 custom particle objects, which can be found here. And those are just cylinders who have like different radii. And let me see, if I just change those, it should be reflected. Yeah, also in the render. And go back to that lower. And of course, you can just put in there whatever you like. I just use those cylinders. And I think this was the gist of the scene, or of this preset. Yeah. One thing. Here I used the angular velocity to map colors onto my particles. And so if I, let's say, set this one to 110 degrees, they're picking up from a much narrower range. And I think I also set it to repeat. Exactly. So if I set it to a much narrower range of speed, they're going through this ramp, and then as soon as they exceed this 81 degrees, they're just repeating or going through this ramp again and again. Yeah, so that's for this color mapper, to get some nice colors in there. And I think, yeah, that was the glitter rocket. So let's go to a different one. I think this one is interesting. So you can not only emit from those base shapes, but also and from geometry, but also from splines. This is what I did in this instance. So let me turn off everything else, but the spline emitter and the spline I'm emitting from, and the group I'm emitting into. So this is how it looks. It's emitting constantly 36,000 particles per frame, and they have rather short lifetime, a bit of speed to them, and not sure why they don't move, to be honest. Okay, of course, because I turned off my rail. Yeah. So, and here inside those settings for direction, there is this option to use a rail spline in this spline emitter, and this is really nice. Let me just turn off the animation, so I think it's better to see. I animated the rail. Oops, why doesn't this work? So like this. So as you can see, hopefully, let me turn it off. So this, the particles are emitted, and then they're moving towards my second spline, my rail spline. And this way, let me just make it editable and move it around to see the effect. Okay, let's make it like so. So here it is. And see, yeah, that's a bit too small. So if I change the way my rail spline is looking, it should be, let me just replace it here. Yeah, so now it should work. If I change how my rail spline is looking, that's also, of course, reflected in the direction the particles are taking. And this is like a really nice way to control not only where the particles are emitted, but also where they're flying to. So like highly art directable, which is very nice in production. So let me then turn on some of the other modifiers. So this one I used in order to map my y position, my speed to my position, to my y position. The thing is, yeah. Let me just replace it with the original helix, with this one, so it looks a bit nicer. So here, like I said, I'm mapping my speed to my y position. That means those guys down there and those guys up there, they're not as fast as the ones here in the middle. And you can really nicely art direct that with this spline here. Yeah. And then I applied some turbulence, and some friction to those, and the color mapper where I'm mapping the normalized H, or the H percentage, to this ramp. And so, of course, I now lost my animation on my helix. Let me just reopen that. So, yeah. And here, because I'm moving or animating my rail spline, that means the direction of my particles is animated and is changing, which creates this floral-looking shape. So this one, I think, yeah, I set it to point instances. So there are no custom objects or no geometry in here, and yeah, I think, and I also applied some bloom to it. Here in the node editor, let me get rid of those, and let's see. I think it was just set to emission exactly. So to a exact, like using again. Sorry, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I'm using the particle color with alpha as an attribute. So I'm reading in the color and the alpha values from the particles, and I'm using that as an emission color. And the emission weight is rather high. I can set it to low just to show the effect. Exactly. And I also, to get this, how should I say that add effect or that wispy additive look to those particles, I reduce the opacity. So normally they would look like this. But if you lower the opacity and raise the weight of your emission weight, you'll get some nice particle or additive particle look. And yeah, I think that's yeah. Everything else is turned off. It's just emission playing a role in this shader setup. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off rendering. Yeah, I think, yeah, and I even didn't have to use any additional lights in this scene, because those particles, of course, they're glowing and emitting themselves. One thing I would like to see if, so not sure, so because they're emitting, that should also, I guess, you can't see it. Never mind, sorry, digressing. Let's go to the next particle preset. I wanted to show that one. Yeah, I think it was this one. This one is a bit more, yeah, how should I say, nerdy. I read online in an article from his name is Yuan Wu, how you could basically create. Let me just play it. Some divergence-free noise, and he called it bitangent noise. Sounds all complicated, but it's, I mean, basically it isn't. And the thing is, I could, based on his article, I could just recreate that in cinema, and in order to get to have my particles fly around in these interesting shapes. So let's first start with the way to build that vector field or B-tangent noise my particles later on can fly through. I use the volume builder. So here, exactly, I use the volume builder and a sphere as some creation space. That's this guy here. So the volume builder knows, because I'm using fields later on, I have to basically tell those fields where they should be created. And in order to do that, in this case, I use the sphere. So let me just turn it off. And here's a random field with, I think, almost default settings. Only the scale is very high. And if I just put that in, it's created inside of this box. But like I said, I wanted to have it in the spherical shape. So here in creation space, I just set it to objects below. And now it's created where my sphere is. And so the gist of this divergence-free noise creation is you take two random fields and use the gradient field of those random fields and do a cross product of those. And so the thing is, you could doing all that stuff, how should I say, like manually or in code. I could never do that, but in Cinema I could, just have those two random fields, and when I set the volume type to vector, those gradients are already, or vector gradients are already created for me, and all I had to do is create those, have two different seeds for those random fields, and then just set here the mode to cross product, and that was it basically. So now, going back to my particles, I can use the field force, put the volume builder in here as I did, and set it to absolute velocity, raise the strength. Let's do this. And now I'm using this vector field so my particles can move around in that. Let me turn that off so we see that better. So here are the particles. And in order to trace their trajectory, I didn't use a tracer, which you can of course do, like so. You select the particle group and, select the particle group and then go in here, MoGraph tracer, and that would have also worked, but I wanted to inherit the color of my particles because the color is changing, as you can see here inside the color mapper. I used the H percentage again. And the reproduce object can inherit down here. You can set it to color inherit the colors of the particles reproduced, and it's it goes into this group. So let me turn that on, and that results in these nice gradients, or these trails which have the that gradient look to them. And thing is, of course, now you can go in and change the scale of those random fields so it looks a bit more whirly and wispy, or really raise the scale and play around basically. Let me do the time frame, and that results in more shapes like this. And interestingly enough here, now you can see that they reach the end of my sphere, so the end of my creation space. So probably it's a good idea to just make that one bigger. So they're not stopped up there, but they just continue moving. Yeah, cool. Nice. Oh, sorry, I think it is the age, the lifetime, set to a low value. Let's raise it. Cool. And I think that was the gist of this scene. Rendering was achieved with the redshift object tag, and both were set to optimize spheres. And I think the shader, let me see if there's anything worth mentioning here. No, I'm grabbing the particle color with alpha and using that inside of a standard material as base color. And then I'm also using the particle ID, and then I'm jittering, I'm jittering A base color. Oh. To be honest, I'm not sure what I did there. I think I just randomized the colors. Let's just run and see what I did there. Yeah, let's zoom in. So yeah, I think it looks like I tried to randomize. Yeah, randomize, and there should be some white particles among those, which they don't show up. Yeah, that's I think the reason why I use that jitter based on particle ID, because it picks. Yeah, exactly. It spits out a random value, in this case a random float, jittered float, and that one picks up this color ramp, and most of them are black. And okay, we can see probably the effect if I change my ramp, start the IPR. So let's set this ramp down there. And this material color, okay, yeah, sorry. I think I just forgot what I did there. And it can be that this part is not important. So if I plug this one in here, I think it doesn't look so much different. Yeah. Nevertheless, nice effect, and I encourage you guys just to play with all these presets. They're fun and not so difficult to understand, and there's plenty of them to dive into. So back to my presentation. So no. So this is the article I mentioned from Yuvan Wu, and the most important part for me was, not sure if this will work, was this part, and then this part down there. So yeah, and it was nice to just being able to use that as a base concept, and then make the setup in cinema. So because this sounds very complicated, but in cinema it was just a sphere and two random fields inside of a volume builder. So these would be places if you want to have more information or want to have a deeper dive into particles. That QR code leads to just a simple Google Doc where I have links to those. And the C4D help system, when you search for particle introduction, is also very comprehensive, easy to understand, and makes it is helpful to get into the new particle system really easy. And yeah, so any questions? I think I overdid. Yeah. Any questions from the crowd? Yeah. Exactly. When you say stack them, sorry, I think.
There's 1 meter, right? And there's a rail as a guide. Can you add more rails?
Well, let's just get into that scene. So, I mean, you have here a single slot, but of course, let's just try it on a simple example. So this would be a circle, here's my spline emitter, and particles going all over the place. And let's make this one a bit longer. So now let's make a copy of our circle, let's call it rail, and make it editable, turn this one off, and let's maybe put it somewhere here, and inside that, let's make it just or copy, oops, sorry, that didn't work as expected, but yeah, so, I mean, if you now have two segments, let's just see, I never tried it to be honest, so let's put the rail down there, here, And let's see what the particles are doing. So they seem to take the direction, probably, I mean, I'm just guessing here, but I think they're taking the direction closest. So this spline, exactly, let's just deform it and see. So if you set it here, or they're making a mixture of both. So they're blending the positions, or they're just taking this one. I think they're just taking this one. Yeah, this one, so if I delete that one segment, okay. So I guess there is some blending happening here, but to be honest, I don't know what exactly I was taking into account. So maybe it's a blend of both, maybe it takes the distance to the rail spline. Yeah, but it looks interesting, but I'm not so, yeah, I think it, I mean, this one works. Let's make them a bit faster. Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe the sum of, and that can. I'm not sure if that's like very out there. But then again, I think just play around with it and see. But it tries at least. It does, because I could have been also the logic. Just takes the first segment inside of that, but it doesn't. It seems to take both into account. Yeah, we'll just play around, see what gives. Another question, maybe? Yeah, please. What would make it crash? Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. You can make, like I was just shortly mentioning the reproduce object, and that definitely, if I'm not. I mean, let me see. How can I? Yeah, let's take a basic emitter. Now let's reproduce every particle which is present. That means I'm not putting that reproduce inside of this group here, this base group. Let's call it, give it a name. So this is base group. Yeah, so like this. So I'm leaving it outside. There's no condition, and that means every particle which is there will reproduce. So it will also reproduce itself. And let's click on this one here. Let's call it reproduce group. And let's go into point mode. And now if I go, exactly. So now we have 1 point, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure. Okay, that's the base group. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's try it again. Let's go frame by frame. Of course, I had set it to distribute, and I think that was a wise decision to set it to that, because if I set it to per particle constant in continuous mode, and then go 1 frame forward, you see like it gets very high very fast. So here I'm at frame 14, and let's say now I have over 1 million particles at frame 18, but it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like 1 million particles or nearly 2 million particles. And this is what I meant by being very careful to use the reproduce, especially in this constellation, when you're reproducing per particle in a constant mode. And like I said, I think it was a very wise decision to have it in distribute mode, because then, yeah, you're much safer, and it won't crash. But the thing is, I mean, I can imagine when you're using a lot of particles, and by a lot I mean really a lot, I'm not sure, 200 million maybe, and then you're trying to, let's say, composite in After Effects, and you're doing also redshift rendering, so you're really penetrating the GPU, or it has like a really heavy load. I can imagine that it then maybe crashes. But I think in general, the particle system is very robust, and given that it's the first iteration, it's just amazing, I think, how robust it is. And so, I think you will have a hard time to making it crash, to be honest. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some bugs there, here and there, but making it, yeah. May I ask where this question comes from? Like, did you encounter Ah, gotcha.
And seeing that it's so stable makes me have to use it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
If you have a complex scenery with already a lot of stuff going on,
yeah,
to
yeah,
know that this is stable is like
yeah. Oh, most definitely. So the thing is, because we're in the same boat. That for me, it would, yeah, it would be. It's also very important that you can use this stuff in production, and it's not like it. Sometimes features feel like beta. I mean, they're not proposed as beta, but they feel like beta. But this one is definitely not. This one is, I would say, like a very, very solid first release for this feature. Yeah. Okay. More questions? Yeah, please.
How fast is baking?
How fast is baking? Well, I'm not sure how to answer that. Let's.
The old system was super fast to bake.
Yeah.
I really like that, so I can
Ah, okay.
scroll through.
Ah, gotcha.
But how fast was this bake? Like your rail example, for example?
Yeah, let's try that. I mean, the thing is, because where is it? Up there. I lost it. There it is. Yeah, let's open it, and it bakes. The caching or baking is happening on the groups here in the cache tab, and the thing is, one thing to keep in mind is if you want to cache every attribute which is on the particles, because as you can see there are some of those, and because for me most of the time, like I'm not sure if I really need the lifetime or the distance, and if they're just points, it doesn't make sense any alignment or angular velocity to cache out. But we can turn all of those on and just try it. I don't know. Let's set it to 90 frames and give it a try. So, not sure. Is it okay on a desktop? And why can't? Do I have to? Sorry, this is not my computer.
Just put it into the FMX folder.
Gotcha. Here, FMX folder, and do I have to like this open and then? Ah, sorry. Here. So because I was clicking on the folder to look for an Alembic file which has the particle cached, and we didn't cache them yet. So cache the object and then choose. Maybe I don't know. Let's make a new folder. Call it cache, and then give it a name. My particles, and then just save. And I would say that's reasonably fast. For we can take a look at how many particles they were. And the thing is, with the old particle system, I can imagine the amount of data you're caching was not as much as this. So let's see how many we had here. Let's turn it. Now we can of course turn everything off. We don't need it. We have it cached here, and then scrub through, and we have here around 1 million, if I'm correct. Let's see, 1,260 something. So yeah, and I mean as you just saw, I think it's okay. I'm not sure like if it's really comparable, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you for all that great examples.
Yeah. You're welcome. Any more question, please?
Could you deform an object with a particle system, taking the rest position and yes, you can.
Well, with some hacking. So the thing is, right now there is no straightforward way, and yeah. But the thing is, oops, sorry. What you can do is deform particles, which can be very important in production when you have to. I don't know. You have something like this. Let's try it, because it's cached. It should work. Let's take a camera deformer. So not all of those deformers are working, but most of them, especially the point-based ones, are working. So let's grab a magnet and let's see exactly. Now you're deforming your particles in camera space. So, and that's really nice way of having control over let's say you have a base particle set up, and you want to have like, just nudge a bit the particles to one way or the other, and yeah, or another. Let's take a taper it a bit, or let's take a twist it a bit, set it to unlimited, and yeah, that one is really performant, which is just great, I think. So after those, maybe use that one, and you can then now really deform and art direct your particles. So any other questions? Yes, please go ahead. Sorry, come again? That would be like emitting, for example, based on music, or is it the speed, the intensity, the loudness? I mean, I think, yeah, but also not like in a straightforward way. I think I would utilize MoGraph to create my emission and, let's say, the size. For example, the intensity of the music, the loudness is changing the size of my emitter, and that way you would have an indirect way to utilize sound, because there is this sound effector, and that you can use easily in conjunction with the cloner system, with MoGraph, and create exactly like your emitter shape, and then use probably the mesh emitter. But there is no dedicated sound modifier for particles. But I would send an email to Maxon, let them know. Oh yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. Thanks very much. Thing is, I've never used the sound field, and I very rarely use the sound effector, so I was probably the wrong guy to ask this. But yeah, thanks, Sebastian. Another question? Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because you said you work with Houdini and cinema.
Yes.
With all these new features coming to cinema and cinema getting more and more powerful, I was wondering how much of your daily work you've done in cinema and what are the ones you switched to Houdini?
Yeah, that's a nice question. So the thing is, cinema is still my main tool. So I would say 80% of my work is happening inside of cinema. And for example, in the last, maybe from the last project. In the last project, I had to we had to create some volumes, which had to look in a specific shape, and so a colleague of mine, he started to create that in cinema with the volume builder, and so and that was fine and dandy. That worked really well. He could really art direct it, and then in the next phase of the production, we needed to really high resolution volumes, because we needed to render out 6K stills, and with volumes you need like a lot of voxels to have it looking nicely, and that's where we hit like a roadblock. And because he made the base shape, and now we wanted to have first much more detail in there, and have noisy detail. So I wanted to, exactly, noisy detail in there. And so that's where I had to go into Houdini, and use the new cloud tools, which are very nice, and resampled my volume. So I think we had like 2 billion voxels on a single object. And yeah, so that was something. And I mean, Houdini also wasn't like, I couldn't actually take a look at my volumes anymore in the viewport. So I set it to manual and then just bake it out. And yeah, so I had like really huge single files in volume. So that's maybe one example. So we started out in cinema, did the basic art direction, and then we had like this challenge of having very high resolution, or that was very demanding. And then I went to Houdini, did those in Houdini, but then get back to cinema and then rendered them in Octane. Yeah, so hope that answers your question. Okay, guys. I think if there are no more any questions, we leave it here. So let me just show this thing again. This you can scan if you want to win a Maxon 1 license, and I can just say thank you. And if you want to stay in touch, you can find me on Instagram at Jodorowsky. And thanks to Maxon again having me here. And yeah.